Hi everyone, welcome back to Simple Things. Today we're going to be looking at Before we get into the video, I'm going to ask you to like, comment, share, and please subscribe to my channel by clicking on the word written in red, subscribe, below this video. You can also click the bell icon so you can get notifications as soon as I upload a new video. Thanks. With social distancing guidelines in place during this pandemic, one popular newspaper editorial expresses the concern that children may find it difficult to go from house to house this Halloween. The flip side of that is the fear that neighbors may choose to gather indoors instead, hence the dilemma, to trick or not to treat. Now, this video is not intended to convince nor to persuade. None of my videos are. I'm merely presenting some basic facts with the hope that facts will appeal to honest hearts. Halloween is celebrated across the globe each year on the last day of October. On this day, children dressed in various costumes go from door to door collecting candies or sweets. Under the supervision of parents or older family members, they knock on doors or ring doorbells depending on which region you live in. This activity is normally referred to as trick or treat. Most of us may be familiar with the term All Saints' Day or All Hallows' Day, among other names. This is celebrated by the Roman Church on November 1. It is a day in which the quote-unquote saints are honored. Now, if you're a Catholic, Methodist, or Anglican, you can school me on this. So obviously, I'm not trying to be the expert here. In the West, the celebrations begin on the eve of All Hallows' Day, the same day Halloween is celebrated. Coincidental or not, let's make the facts speak. Encyclopedia Britannica tells us that the origin of Halloween goes back to a festival of the Druids. Now, the Druids were a high class of Celts who were the priests, teachers, philosophers, judges. They were also held to be the medium between man and the gods. Record of these Druids dates back to the 3rd century BC in Gaul and Britain. Gaul then is France today. If you look at the map on your screen, you'll see Gaul highlighted as well as Britain. The Celtic people were a collection of tribes originating in Central Europe. They shared a common language, religious beliefs, traditions, and culture. If you live in the Northern Hemisphere, then you might be preparing to celebrate Samhain this Saturday evening, October 31. For those of us who are not familiar with this festival, it serves as a slightly similar purpose as crop over in the Caribbean. Samhain marks the end of the harvest and the beginning of winter, or the darker half of the year. I'm quoting from the review online here. This date was also the eve of the New Year in both Celtic and Anglo-Saxon times, and was the occasion for one of the ancient fire festivals, when huge bonfires were set on hilltops to frighten away evil spirits. The date was connected with the return of the herds from the pasture, and laws and land tenures were renewed. The souls of the dead were supposed to revisit their homes on this day, and the autumn festival acquired sinister significance, with ghosts, witches, goblins, black cats, fairies, and demons of all kinds said to be roaming about. It was the time to placate the supernatural powers controlling the process of nature. End of quote. The History Channel also backs this up, adding that costumes were also worn and that the bonfires and the costumes were to ward off ghosts. Sounds familiar? After the Roman conquest of the 10 nations, 3 of which fell, as foretold in the book of Daniel, the 7 remaining nations became what we know as Europe. And you can do a research on this from secular history, then do a study on the book of Daniel and see how history fulfills prophecy to a T. With the Christianization of this region, after Constantine joined the Christian church, many pagan practices were brought into the church. And you can also do your own research on this. Please do not take my word for it. The Christian church in Britain maintained an adapted version of the Samhain celebrations, adding the All Saints' Day feast to it. However, some scholars maintain that Halloween began solely as a Christian holiday. Quoting from the Independent Online, Pope Boniface IV inaugurated the original Feast of All Holy Martyrs on the 13th of May, 609 AD, when he consecrated a pantheon in Rome in honor of the Virgin Mary, stripping out the statues of Roman deities like Jupiter to honor the Christians persecuted by the empire. The day was renamed the Feast of All Saints and moved to November 1 more than a century after, unquote. Feel free to do your own research on the evolution of this ritual. Imagine walking into a graveyard on Halloween night and seeing what's on your screen. As a Bible-believing Christian or just anyone in general, what would you think? So, how did the practice of carving pumpkins begin? And by the way, if you've made it this far into the video, don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you can be notified whenever I upload a new video. According to the History Channel, the tradition of carving faces in pumpkins dates back to the Irish who chiseled faces in turnips. The name jack-o'-lantern comes from a man called Stingy Jack. This ritual was brought by the Irish immigrants across the ocean where pumpkin was home. In the US, it is not coincidental that school trips to pumpkin farms are common this time of year. Another ritual is Character Day, where students are encouraged to read a book, then dress up as their favorite character. Oh, please. And what about masks? It is ironic that this video is coming out during the coronavirus pandemic, when masks are the order of the day. A couple days ago, the media reported that some areas are recommending that the children do not wear Halloween masks this year when going to trick or treat. I guess the idea is that one should be able to see that the person standing on your doorstep is actually wearing a mask, a protective face covering. The rule of wearing face covering for health reasons was actually given by God Himself. In Leviticus 13 verse 45 we read, "And the leper in whom the plague is, his clothes shall be rent, and his head bare, and he shall put a covering upon his upper lip, and shall cry, Unclean, unclean." I know most of you watching this are familiar with the plague of leprosy as recorded both in secular history and in the Bible. The funny thing about this practice is that the covering was supposed to be upon the mouth or upon his upper lip, but the nose was left out. And it makes sense because then you could inhale fresh air through your nostrils and let out the toxic leprous air through your mouth, which was covered. Hence, no way of tainting the air with it. Remember, the patient would have already been quarantined outside the camp, so no healthy person came in contact with the droplets anyhow. But that's a whole different study. If you've made it this far in the video, I just want to thank you for your time so far. And I want to leave you with Ecclesiastes 1 verse 9 and Matthew 15 verse 9. And I also want to read to you Ephesians 5 verses 8 and 11. "For ye were sometimes darkness, but now are ye light in the Lord. Walk as children of light, and have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather reprove them."